So today I'm going to be talking about managing stress. And this is where we get into more of the details about the specific ways that we kind of can cope and deal with stress, especially during this time when there's so much uncertainty in our society. So one of the first steps in really dealing with stress is that we really need to learn ourselves. We need to know how we are under stress. What is my normal and how am I different when I'm under stress? Because it's only knowing how we usually are that's going to help us know that we're not doing okay. So we need to recognize when it's more than just the routine stress. So we're going to need to pay attention to our bodies a little bit more. If we know we normally sleep a certain number of hours, do I find myself sleeping more or do I find myself sleeping less? Do I have a hard time falling asleep? Am I falling asleep and then waking up and can't go back to sleep? Those are things we kind of need to know about ourselves, and most of us do. We're going to need to notice if we're engaging in more alcohol or substance abuse. Those are things that maybe kind of sneak up on us if we're under stress. One of the hallmarks of being depressed or stressed is if we find ourselves snapping easier or getting frustrated easier, being easily angered. Those might be signs that the stress has reached a point that is not, healthy. And of course, if we start to feel depressed, if we have low energy or low motivation, those are things we need to know about ourselves. So we'll go more into the actual diagnoses of depression and anxiety in segment 3. So let's talk about managing the stress. So we've learned about ourselves. We know what we are usually like. Then we're going to look at tactics or actual things that we can do to manage the stress. So one of the things that may come easy to some people and not to others is to get organized. Set goals and priorities. And sometimes that helps us feel less stressed because once we write it down, we're able to kind of organize the pros and cons or put things closer to needing to be done and put other things on the back burner, so to speak. So this way, we make lists. We decide, what must get done now and what can wait. Some of the things as far as setting goals and priorities is being able to tell people no to new things. If we're people pleasers, then we're going to try to do everything we can when somebody needs our help. So learning to say no and not feel guilty sometimes is a good way to take care of ourselves. And to be mindful of what we've accomplished each day. So we're very good at pointing out what we haven't done rather than what we have done. So trying to push ourselves into thinking about, what things did I get accomplished is a way to kind of make us feel less stressed. So to the next thing, and obviously we're not doing great at this, is getting regular exercise. So if you're like me, I obviously don't love to exercise, but I know that when I have in the past, that I did feel that release of, a great feeling. They talk about the runner's high, that's all related to brain chemicals. So the research says just 30 minutes per day of walking can help boost your mood and improve your health. So the way that works is that exercise causes the brain to release the good brain chemicals, which the proper term is neurotransmitters, such as endorphins, dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And all of those play a role in regulating mood. So exercise does that. So specifically, regular exercise raises the level of serotonin, which serotonin is involved in depression, that boosts mood and overall sense of well-being. It can also help improve sleep. It can help improve appetite. And those things are usually what are impacted by depression. One of the things about depression is that we do tend to isolate or get more, it's not just isolation, but we just kind of get more reserved and not outgoing. So staying in touch and staying connected with other people is a way for us to kind of get that emotional support. We sometimes don't reach out to other people because we don't want to be a burden to them, but having emotional support helps us feel like we're not alone. And we do know that loneliness leads to depression. So in order to reduce stress, we need to kind of push ourselves to ask for help from friends or family, community organizations, or if you're involved in a church or a religious practice, those can be really supportive as well. So we do know having a strong support system helps counter depression and stress. So and going into more detail about loneliness, having decreased contact with others leads to loneliness. There's some talk about how, elderly people, before they got dementia, they first were depressed, and that led more to the dementia. So there is some information out there about the role of loneliness in the development of depression. So that does affect our emotional and mental health. So social isolation can throw off sleep patterns and disrupt our focus, affect both our logical and verbal reasoning. At the core of it all, sleep is really, really important, because the more out of routine our sleep cycle is, the harder it is for our brain to catch up and deal with stress. So some of the things that are now part of coping with stress or trauma are kind of a resurgence from the 60s and 70s. So there's this whole thing about staying positive and about how our thoughts impact our feelings and our feelings impact our behavior. So one thing I do notice about in treating people who have depression is that most of their thoughts are very negative, and they engage in what we call negative self-talk. So negative self-talk is usually critical, and it's kind of like beating yourself up about something maybe you can't even control. And so we all engage in that talking to ourselves about things. If we make a simple mistake, the healthy self-talk would be, you messed up this time, but you'll be able to, correct it. But there are some people that go straight to, oh, you're such a loser, you never do anything right. And those are the thoughts that make you feel more stressed and don't help. So negative self-talk is a big part of interfering with being able to stay positive. So in order to stay positive, we have to force ourselves to change the negative self-talk. So you may even have to just tell yourself, stop, and turn your thought or your statement into something that's more positive. And talk ourselves out of this, feeling stressed. And instead of overreacting, identify the facts that are involved in the situation. And then remind ourselves about the positives in situations that are happening. One of the things that I've done more recently is I do a gratitude journal kind of thing. I don't even write it down all the time, but one of the first things I do every day is I kind of try to point out to myself some of the positive things that have happened or some of the positive things that are going on in my life. And because all day long I get pointed out, everything that's going wrong. So I've got to remind myself that just because I'm watching the news and things are happening or somebody got angry with me, there's still the positive stuff that's happening. So relaxing activities are some of the things that we need to do when we're feeling stressed. and in the mental health field, we call it self-care. And so a lot of this stuff is about self-care. We need to kind of look at, like I mentioned earlier, about things that were popular in the 60s and 70s. Meditation is making a big comeback. And through my research, I did find that there are several YouTube videos on guided meditation that are very helpful and teach breathing exercises. And in conjunction with the relaxation and the deep breathing, it calms our body physiologically. So we need to schedule those times for ourselves. Also, we have some apps for smartphones called Calm and Breathe, both of which are very helpful and help, if you're having a particularly stressful day, you take a few moments and use those apps, and it's kind of on the spot, a relaxation tool. So there are a lot of different videos on YouTube that do, if you type in guided meditation, there's different ones that pertain to like gratitude or energizing, different types of things. So you can use it for whatever you want to do. And so yoga has become popular. A lot of people are participating in yoga. And what's interesting about yoga is that it's carrying out specific body posture and poses while performing deep breathing activities, which causes a biochemical relaxation with our body. So when we talk about biochemical, we're talking about the brain and the body's, communication and the neurotransmitters and all that stuff. So when we force a relaxation, that decreases our heart rate, it decreases our blood pressure, it just calms the body. So the essence is calming the mind and the body. So the research shows that yoga increases the level of GABA, which is a chemical in the brain that helps regulate the nerve activity that's involved in anxiety disorders. So it really does work. There's a lot of these things that people really don't feel would be very beneficial, but they're doing a lot of research scientifically, and it's proving that they are. So nowadays you can go into most stores and find essential oils. We know that the ones that are relaxing are the lavender, eucalyptus, and what we're getting into in this mode of talk is about our senses. And, our five senses are the things that we need to take care of in order for us to relax. So we talk about essential oils, we talk about taking a bath. There's some recipes online for specific things you can put in your bath that cause lower stress hormones, and all of those things. So one of the topics that we deal with a lot, especially with teenagers, using music to shape your mood. So if you're in a bad mood or you're feeling down and you listen to music that's sad or angry, it's not likely that you're going to have de-stress from that. So it's important, if you love music or you like music, it can be used to shape your mood. And, we can often change how we feel about situations or a moment by using music. So we also know that, the genres of music, there's a lot of, nature sounds, and different instrumentals that are good for relaxation. But you don't necessarily have to use something specifically for relaxing. You can listen to classical, you can listen to jazz. It's all about what you're feeling at that moment and the impact that the music has. And with the recent, we hear a lot about pet therapy. We hear a lot about my comfort animal. So we know that pets help relieve stress. I think most people are pet people. For some people it may be more stress because you have added responsibility with a pet. But there's something about the unconditional acceptance from a pet the soft fur. Those things can be very soothing, and they can make you feel, happy and accepted. So pets can help with stress. And then, obviously choosing who you spend your free time with can also impact your stress level. So we can say spend time with family, but for a person, that may not be relaxing. That might actually be more stressful. So spending time with friends, or if you're somebody that's always around other people, you may just need to take some time for yourself. So, planning for relaxation time is important. Planning activities, having something to look forward to is important. So for anxiety, we know that doing something repetitive with our hands helps us, like our brain, calm down. So I'm one of those people where if I'm watching TV, I'm also doing something with my hands, sewing or coloring, drawing, or something like that. So it helps totally occupy your mind. In a lot of situations with stress, we really want to distract ourselves because it's something we can't stop thinking about. So we have to force ourselves to kind of get distracted and get off of that focus. Obviously, if you're a spiritual person, praying is something that can be very calming. It can have a sense of peacefulness. Some religions are more peaceful than others, but praying is kind of like meditating in a way. It's very similar. And then if you have the luxury, getting a massage is a complete way to totally relax your body. So here's something that is kind of new to people. Maybe not all people, but to me it is. So there's a focus about getting back to nature, getting more involved in nature. We're in a time now where we spend a lot of time indoors. So getting outside is a way to kind of calm your mental or physical stress. In Japan, they kind of came up with, although it's been around a long time, with a term that's called forest bathing. And so it just means that you kind of immerse yourself in nature, and so that you can consciously connect with what's going on around you. And then I've read something that was really interesting about, when I was a kid, we went barefoot a lot. That we don't do as much. We have shoes for everything now. There's research saying that actually walking barefoot on grass or dirt releases like an electrical type of reaction in our bodies and helps us decrease stress. So the other thing about being outdoors is that recent investigations have revealed that being outdoors reduces our stress by lowering the stress hormone cortisol, which cortisol's the one thing we hear a lot about is the real negative. So less cortisol means lower chances of hypertension or tachycardia. Of course, venting or self-expressing is important. We tend to hold things in. And what we've learned about that is that as we hold things in, it has a negative impact on our stress because it increases it. And then we're more likely to become irritable and kind of, snap on people. So it's very important to be able to, share our frustrations and to kind of communicate that. But oftentimes we don't feel like we can burden our close family members or our friends. I know that I don't always tell my parents everything that's going on because I don't want them to be upset or worried. So, I don't tell them everything. The thing about going into therapy is that person is a neutral person and they're easier to talk to because you don't feel like what you're saying is going to have an emotional impact on them. So when we talk about psychotherapy or counseling, that's a really good outlet for people who just need to really process everything that's on their mind. And so that leads us into journaling. And journaling is one of those things that is an alternative to talking. So if we write down our feelings, if we write a letter to somebody that we're upset with, it's kind of the same as if we talked about it and got it out or off our chest, so to speak. That's one of the things about journaling, is that you can write anything in there and then you can tear it up, throw it away, and you've gotten it out.